Well, Richie from Big Backyard Ideas, and in today's video I'm going to be restoring my daughter's Skywalker trampoline. I have got a new net, as the existing one simply given up the ghost with a combination of sun then rain. This trampoline was in New Jersey for 3 years and in California for 3 years, and this surround has just gone, you can virtually put your finger through this. It's got big holes coming through it in there. So in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to fit a new surround and how to fit a new net, which are in these two boxes. Now, a word of warning at the outset, people, this job can be done by one person on their own. So if you're a single parent, don't worry, you can do this job on your own. I will say it's quite warm work, particularly in this Northern California weather today, and it is very time consuming. I've just released the edge of the net, as I'll show you but I will show you exactly how to do that in just a second. All I would say is a budget for around about half an hour just to undo the existing net. Then you've got a budget for the time to put the other one on. So I'm thinking maybe set aside a couple of hours for this job, particularly if, like me, you're then going to replace the foam padding around the outside. Anyway, let's see how we got here. The surround, now all of the surround is simply tied on very loosely, so I'm going to quickly go around and do that. I got my knife because I wasn't sure if I'd actually knotted these on or not. That's not the case, so let's go right the way around, quickly undoing all these and then remove the thing. And the one thing I would say at this point, if you've tied all these on with knots in, just get a pair of scissors or a knife and simply cut through them. And if anybody's wondering why all this stuff is here, I've got the 1-800 junk people coming round very shortly. Hence, now is the ideal time to remove the trampoline cover so they can take it away with this stuff. The first thing I would say is I was absolutely convinced there was a join in this cover somewhere, but I've been right the way around the outside of it and I cannot find a join in it anywhere. So, to save time, I'm simply going to cut through this because I need it off in a hurry. In case the junk people arrive before I've finished. We will see if there is a join when I fit the new one on. Anyway, time to remove all this. Okay, so now we can see the wood for the trees, so to speak. When it comes to fitting a new surround, that should, fingers crossed, be the relatively easy part of the job. The tricky bit is fitting the net. You might just think it's attached to the top there, but no, it links through every single spring on here. So, hopefully you have remembered to keep the spring puller that you had from when you assembled the trampoline. And by the way, I've got a video of how to assemble this 15-foot Skywalker trampoline step by step. I'll put a link to that below the video. Now, I had to think about the way to do this. You don't pull it from here. You pull the spring back from here. We're then going to release that from each one of these and you're going to pull that through. And the thing being, you're also going to need to refit every one of these springs. So you're going to need to do that to every one of these in order to remove the cover from the bottom before we fit the new one, because obviously if you disconnect all the springs, the thing's just going to fall on the floor. So you've got to fit all the springs back on as you're going along. So let me get on with that and then let's address how we remove the net from the top and attach it to the top. Now at this stage I'm just going to show you how to release the first few springs in real time, and then I'm going to speed up the rest of this video. Now believe me, this is not going to be the most interesting of jobs to watch, so I'll speed it up. Now for this part of the job you are going to need a lot of patience, as replacing the net and the pad surround will take approximately 2 hours, give or take 30 minutes depending on how handy you are. It can be done by one person on their own, however. But you are going to need some patience. There is no easy way to avoid this part of the job. There's no quick solution around it. It is manual, it's very time consuming, so you're just going to need some patience, but you will get there, as I'll show you. Now, while most of the springs come off nice and easily, you're still going to need to allow a decent amount of time for this job. I'm thinking this is probably going to take about half an hour by the time I've just got all the springs off, and then bear in mind you need to do the same when you're fitting the new safety net to it. Now, some of the springs come off really easily, like that. Others, the netting has caught over the top and you really struggle to get the spring off. So you are going to need quite a bit of patience as well when doing this job. Typically, I've now come on to some ones that are really easy to undo, but do not expect them all to be child friendly, because about 5 minutes ago I was certainly using some very non-child friendly language on this. One of the awkward ones is where the net is like that on the thing, and then trying to release it, it then immediately gets caught up in the netting itself. That one didn't go too badly, but some of them can be a real pain. Well, that's my last spring removed, so the trampoline net is now completely free. Just checking I've not missed any on here. Nope. So we're now all ready to remove the net and fit the new one, which means getting inside the trampoline to adjust the top poles. Okay, now this is one of the bits in my video where I would just say, do as I say, not necessarily as I do. I'm up in the top of the trampoline. You're going to need to remove each of the top halves of the 6 poles in order to release the netting to fit your new one on here. At this stage, I discover there is a screw on the outside of here which I'm going to need to release in order to be able to slide that pole upwards and get to that top part of the netting on there. It's going to need a Phillips screwdriver to do this. Cordless one is ideal if you've got one to hand. Okay, now I went to use my cordless screwdriver on it, and that didn't want to go anywhere. And guess, maybe with the sun, the rain, etc., that's a little stiff. So you're going to need to remove that screw from all 6 of your arms. Obviously keeping them very safe, as that's not like a standard size screw you're going to be able to go to your local hardware store and buy. Okay, now taking the last of my screws out, but I would like to say we don't hide away anything on this channel. I've got one screw on here, and that does not want to come loose at all on there. Not too worried about that, because I can potentially reach up and tie the net over the top of one. If it was 2 poles, it would be an extreme problem. But the fact one screw doesn't want to come out, not too worried on that. But I would say don't go mad putting an electric screwdriver in there, otherwise you're simply going to strip the head on that. But that one is simply definitely not going to come out. Okay, now my recycling guys arrived earlier, so I had to use my knife to cut the net away from the top. But in an ideal world, what you're going to want to do is remove every post. Now obviously the net would still be attached on here, but circumstances went against me. The rubbish guys arrived beforehand and removed that screw. Lay all these down on the inside. Let's see, one of these, yeah, that's the one that's still got screw in. Remove the other ones. Remove this black screw, but keep it very safe, as obviously you're going to need it when you re-put the netting on. Okay, so we're going to do that with every one of these, and obviously junk the netting. As I say, I'm really sorry for people who have, literally the guys arrived midway through my filming and I had to use the knife to simply cut the netting away on the top on here. But typically what you would do is you would pull all of these supports off, undo that screw, and then remove the entire netting, the inside on there. So at this stage your trampoline should look something like this. You've removed all of the 6 uprights, and the one that I've got a screw stuck in there. It's not going to be too much of a problem, although I do have to remove the top of the net from that one, but that is pretty much what it should look like. You want all the bottom half of the supports still in place. And now, however, it's time to get the spring pull out again, get this new net lined up. This time I'm going to have, rather than have the door on the other side, which was a bit awkward, I'm going to place the new door here facing upwards on there. Pull all of the springs, do the opposite of what I was doing earlier, pull all the springs out, feed the sliders through the net on there and put the springs back on. So that's probably going to take about another 35 minutes or so. As I said, lots of patience required for this job, people. And we'll just address this last remaining upright which is stuck in place on here. As long as you can get the screw out, it's not going to be too much of an issue if you've just got one pillar that's stuck in place. If you had 2 pillars stuck in place, it is definitely going to be an issue on here. But if I've only got one loop to put over the top of this pillar, then not so much of an issue. All that will become apparent when I fit the net to the remaining 5 pillars. Okay, so the trampoline is fully cleaned, ready to fit the new safety net around it. I've got my new padding to go around it. laid it out in, and it is all in one piece. I was thinking it came in two pieces, had a join in there, but the thing is all in one piece. So what I'm thinking is we fit our new safety net into the middle, having removed all of our springs to fit it, as I will show you in just a second. Then, prior to putting the arms on, we fit the pad over the top, so we're not making life too complicated for ourselves. Anyway, hopefully that will make more sense as I go along. Anyway, here's to about 35 minutes fitting the new net. Okay, now with the new net, it should be fairly obvious as to which the top and the bottom edges are. The top edge is going to have this little part in here with a hole through it, which is where I've just removed the screw from the top of one of the blue poles. So that is going to go through the inside of there, which means that is the top of the net, so that can go in the middle. But the bit I want, which is the really fun job, is this bottom edge, where we're going to fit every one of these springs back through, like at the start of the video. Like I said, this job requires a lot of patience, a lot of time. Anyway, let me unwrap the thing around roughly in a circle and see how we get on. Now, there's one key thing I will say about this, is you need to make sure the door is exactly where you want it, because if you get the door in the wrong place, you have to undo every single one of the springs and then move the net around on here. So the door positioning, absolutely critical. Last time I did that on the other side when somebody else reassembled the trampoline for me when we moved here. This time I want it here where the ground is nice and solid, so my daughter can get easy access to it with the ladder. What you do not want to do is you do not want the door opposite one of these uprights on here, otherwise you'll be battling. You might think it's handy, you'll be squeezing around it to get in past that post. So trust me, you want it in between the two posts. The first thing you want to do is find the door access to the trampoline. Now I want that here, which means I've got a bit of wiggling and jiggling work to do to get that out, because I want my door roughly in line with this pillar here. That now means I've got to spread everything manually out around. No need to worry about any of those inner pillars whatsoever. Just leave them where you've thrown them, where they lay, etc. on there. This job, like while I'm doing this on myself, I always like to do these things and show them how, like a single parent could do them on their own. It would be quicker with two people. It wouldn't necessarily be any better with two people, but it would be quicker with two people, as you've got an awful lot of netting to work with. But what we're doing is basically putting it out in a circle around the outside of the trampoline. Like I said, there's nothing so far I've done on this that one person couldn't do on their own. I actually assembled this to start with just on my own. It's going to move around, which is going to drive you a little bit crazy. All the thing you've got to keep in mind is keep that door roughly where you put it. Like I said, the moving around of the thing will drive you a little bit crazy. Once we've got it towards the outside, once we've got it stretched out, it's going to become easier. See now, feeding it through. Now it's coming untangled from itself. Like I say, do not worry about those inner pillars. That's the least of your problems or your worries at this point. Wow. Okay, so it should look something roughly like that when you lay it out, but like I say, you want to make sure the door, as you see, even that shifted round 2 feet away from where I want it, so I'm going to have to come down to ground level and drag that back around. Your key starting point for fixing the net is that door. You get that right, everything else will fall into place. So you want that in line roughly with this post, away from the two pillars. You do not want it in line with one of those pillars. You might think it might give your kids an easy way up into it. Trust me, it will not. You want it where you can walk straight into it. Now for the fun job. Going up on 5:15 on a Sunday night in a very sunny Northern California. But on the plus side, all my trash is gone, so it's a lot easier to do than the first bit of this job was. Okay, we're going to use the spring puller again. Release the springs. This is a real fun bit of the job, like it was when I did them. Fit each spring back into place on that. As I say, this is the absolute key part of the job. ensuring that the door is located exactly centrally between two of the pillars. Literally, might not sound like it right now when you're watching this video, but that's the hard bit of the job done. Get that wrong and it will come home to haunt you. If you've got this in the wrong place, like here, you will have to undo every single spring to refit that net cover. So pay attention. Anyway, back with you in about half an hour. Now we've got to fit every spring very carefully through the cover, attempting not to snag the spring on the cover. So at the absolute outset, when you're refitting the net, there can be a tendency just to pull it through and hook the loop through like that. Force the whole of the metal loop through like that. Makes life much easier. Also decreases the tension in the net. Well, if you thought taking the springs off was hard, you're going to need the patience of a saint when putting them back on, because removing the spring is easy, but you're dealing with a fresh elastic cover on here. Unless you get this loop completely clear, the hook will snag in the plastic underneath, and then you will spend 2 to 3 minutes wrestling the thing out. Do not say I didn't warn you. This job requires a lot of patience, and as I say, you're going to need to pay attention, because you're almost having to stretch one over from the right or the left, depending on how, with the right hand or left hander each time. Do not make the mistake of missing one and leaving a gap in there, because you will have to undo every spring to correct your error on there. Okay, my one tip when restringing the net is make sure the net is pushed back fully over all the clips on here, because otherwise when you get to the end it's becoming a real hassle to pull the net over to stretch it through the next clip. Hope that makes sense. So you want them all through, push back as far as we can. Will make life a lot easier when we get to the very end. And I will say, if you do this from the absolute outset, even from the first couple of loops on it, life will be a lot easier when you get to the end. As I say, first one of these I'm restringing, so learn from what I'm doing. Now, doing what I just showed you on the loops earlier on should pay dividends when it comes to the end of the job. Otherwise you're just battling against the canvas, stretching against itself, as I found out to my cost. So as I say, do as I say, not necessarily as I do. They should now attach much easier, and also it's going to extend the life of the net. Okay, well, after coming up on 40 minutes there, the new net is completely fitted with every spring going through the bottom of the net, each one of them pushed back on there so it's not going to stretch. When I did them originally, some of them were like across that, like that, which I think may have caused some strain at the bottom of the net, although net never broke at the bottom. I think easing that tension has definitely helped. Well, that is all the bottom of the new net secured. Now you might think my next job is going to be to attach the top of the net to the poles, but first of all I need to put the surround on, because that's going to be far easier to do with all the poles off than it is with everything on there, because that's in one continuous piece, not two pieces as I originally thought on there. So let's get that on. Okay, so next we're gonna very carefully, probably this is a job where you could do this on your own, I would say, but it will just be a lot easier with two people. But there's nothing to stop you doing this on your own. I'm going to stretch it out around the top like this. As I say, it's just, this is a job, you could do this on your own, but it will just be easier with two people on there like that. And you need to make sure that each of the gaps is by your pillar on there, if that makes sense. So pull that back around, make sure the gap is there, make sure the gap is there, make sure the gap's there, gap's there. Now the cover simply ties on using these straps. As you'll note at the start, I just put a very simple, I didn't even knot them, I just stretched them like that because they are elastic. So just simply pull them tight like that, and your cover's going to stay down and not go anywhere in a hurry, in a high wind, etc, etc, making it also very easy to remove, like I did at the very start of this video. So shouldn't take me a couple of minutes, 5 minutes at the most, I'm thinking, and around the trampoline, and then we're ready to assemble the top poles. Okay, well that's everything strapped on. I said allow 2 to 5 minutes on that, more like 10 minutes plus on there. The elastic straps are absolutely great. You will literally just need to put one twist in them. In fact, elasticated, pulls back against itself and holds the thing down, making them very easy to undo, as I showed at the start of the video, and also very easy to do up. Now we are nearly there, bar for the fact that I'm now going to have to dive under the trampoline, because you will have noticed there are straps on the inside of the cover as well, hidden throughout on here, and you will need to get, this is where, like a smaller person, if you've got a child, you might want to get them involved. Little fun job, pulling the ties down through, it says, and tying them underneath the trampoline. Now they simply loop around, pull down from the inside, loop them around one of the metal bands on there, and you should be good to go. Doing this with a smaller person would definitely be an advantage. Not a job yours truly is looking forwards to doing, but here we go. Now there don't appear as many of them as they do on the ones on the outside. Simply push them around the bands. If you can imagine picturing my hands underneath, I'm simply tying a knot under there. I'm going to do likewise all the way around. A bit difficult to capture that on film without somebody filming from underneath, but as I say, literally drop them down around one of those metal spring bands. I don't think there's too much finesse involved in it. Tighten them up, pull them down, just like that. Let's do that all the way around the rest of the way. Okay, with all the ties on the inside and the outside of the outer ring cover on there, time to fit the poles back on and the new net up. Okay, well for the next bit, there are two ways in which you can do it. You can fit the poles back on over the top and try and reach and stretch the netting over the very top of that, or my preferred method. Now at this stage, I'm going to go round and fit the screw through the net into every one of these other posts before putting them up there. The one thing I would say, looking at this foam, if you are considering replacing the netting or the pad at the bottom, I would consider replacing the foam at the same time. It doesn't really provide doesn't really provide a great deal of cushioning impact from your kid's head bouncing into it, etc. On each one of these screws though, you're going to need to push it through the netting, which is not super easy to start with, before fitting it through the pole. And you're going to need to ensure the two holes are married up, the blue one and the one on the inside of the metal pole on here. Put it in like that until you feel the screw locating in the other side. Thumb tighten up like that. Now I'm going to do exactly, making sure that the pole is bent inwards, I will say, at this point on that. Now I'm going to do that with each of the other poles. Okay, now I've put the top screw in every one of these net posts. The thing I'm going to have to do now is climb up on the outside or inside of the trampoline and push all of the posts into place. The last one, I assure you, is going to be an absolute devil to put into place. And then lastly, we've got the screw to put through on each one of those, but I'm more concerned with getting a post in place first. I can worry about twisting them into place, getting the screw in later on, and do that from the ground. Okay, now for the fun bit. So most of these will go on with a little bit of effort. Now the post does have a key on it if you like, so you do need to bear that in mind. It says rock down into place, and it does. As I said, wiggling and jiggling, as I will call it, using that very Anglo-American British term on that. Basically they've got a flat spot on one side of the post on here, so as I say, you do need to wiggle and jiggle the thing around. It's going to get increasingly harder to do, he says, and that one goes in nicely. 2 more to go. How hard can it be? The answer is probably quite very. The curve inside, that's all you do need to bear in mind. So they should roughly marry up. I'm sorry if the camera angle isn't great on this, people. And that one is down on there. Okay, I can worry about putting the screws in from the outside, but as you can see, my net and cushion replacement coming together quite well. As I say, this job is it is going to be time consuming. Do not, I would say, allow a couple of hours for doing this. Now, the last pillar typically is the hardest one, and that drops down like a dream. Yeah, just got to figure out how to get out of here and put the screws on the outside. But that is my trampoline net, safety net and cushion pad fully in place. Just got to put all the screws through there and we're done for the night. The one great thing I would say about these trampolines is not only got the zipping closure on it, if you forget it, you've also got these three little safety latches on there, so even if somebody leaves the zip undone, you can be assured that your child is not going to fall out of there in a hurry. So my last job for the night is simply got to fit all 5 of these screws to lock the metal post together. Fingers crossed. So a little bit of wiggling and jiggling is going to be required on these to get them to marry up. I would say if the screws necessarily don't want to go in to start with, back them off, shift the post up and down in all that they do. They should go in, they're reasonably stiff, but they should go in reasonably easy at the same time, like that one. And there we are, with the last of the screws in place, holding the poles together. The trampoline restoration is complete. So, if you wanted to know how to fit a new safety net to your existing Skywalker trampoline and the base around to it, now you know exactly how to do it. I would say allow between 2 and 3 hours to do this job, and you will need quite a modicum of patience when doing it. It can be done by one person, does not need 2 people to do this job. The only thing I got my wife to help me with was actually laying out the surround of the trampoline base on there. But again, one person could do that on their own. It's just easier with 2 people. The rest of the work in the main, literally, it's a 1-person job. Anyway, if you like what you see today, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and happy bouncing there, folks. Well, thumbs up if you like this video, guys. Post any comments you might have in the comment section below the video, and hit the circle below to subscribe. And if you do hit the circle, don't forget to hit the bell.